All right. That's Mike.
And that's Drew.
And this is Taren, also known as Triathlon Taren.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me.
Thanks
No
for your
problem.
time.
So please welcome the king of the Trainiacs to the podcast. Taren is a Winnipeg-based YouTuber, triathlete, coach, nutrition expert, husband, and dog dad. He has over 1,100 YouTube videos with over 18 million views. He has helped to inspire his community to become better, stronger, and healthier athletes. Thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me. That's funny when you say king, because right now I'm in swim trunks and a shirt that I got for free. I don't think that kings wear swim trunks and shirts that they have for free for fancy interviews like this.
I don't think we're a fancy interview, but hey, man, I've had plenty of interviews in a t-shirt and swim trunks. So.
And you are sitting in quite a pain cave, which we definitely want to talk about at some point. That's a very impressive facility.
I am pretty lucky. Yeah. It's taken a couple of years to get this way, but it's pretty nice.
Well, let's start way back before this. So I think one of the most interesting things we didn't put into your bio was the fact that you were a professional curler. So can you give us a little bit of detail on, how did you start? Obviously, you're in Winnipeg. Maybe it's the location, but how did you get into curling?
Yeah, it's basically the location. Here in Winnipeg, hockey is like religion. Like, it's number one. And I never really took to hockey. I played like a half a season, just wasn't really into like the uber super competitive jock mentality. Like, I'm a lot more easygoing, not really competitive when it comes to sports, and it just didn't jive with me. And my mom and dad had curled, and I was like a rink rat. When they would go and curl, I would go and I'd slide around on rocks and kill time because it's 2 hours, you got to do something. And at one point, my dad came back from the golf course that he was a member at, and he said, some of the kids dropped out of the junior league. Do you want to go? And I'm like, whatever. I've been sliding around on rocks for a few years. Might as well give it a shot. And that I really took to. It was a couple of years of just kind of kicking around, learning how not to fall. And at some point, I just decided to see if I could get kind of good at it. So I started practicing a lot, and I started working at a curling club. So while all the like old people, the 50, 60-year-old people were smoking on ice, I would clean the ice, get it prepped for them, and then I'd go and practice off to the side. And it's a really neat sport because you don't really have to be athletically talented to do it. You can will yourself to essentially be good by working hard. And that's what I did. I just threw rock after rock after rock, like 100 rocks a day, which takes about an hour and a half thereabouts. And it was within maybe a couple of years that I was starting to play on some of the better junior teams in the province, and just kept going until I was probably about, got to think like 32, 33, and got up to around 15th in the world. And got my face on a couple posters back here. And it was fun to actually kind of be good at a sport as opposed to triathlon, which I'm spectacularly average at. So I like that you guys lead with curling. It makes me sound impressive.
Yeah.
That's very impressive. That is very impressive indeed.
Professional, did you ever aspire, like, was there an aspiration to go to the Olympics? What was the goal of going down that route?
That's usually where people try to get to. And actually, a friend of mine named Ryan Fry, who I grew up with, he was the guy that willed himself to become a gold medalist, literally. Like, he was really talented as a kid. And he was all in his 20s. He kind of struggled to find his way, find a team, but he just kept working harder than everyone else until he became a gold medalist. And that was always kind of the goal of everyone. But when you say professional, it's like he's a gold medalist, and I don't know, maybe in a great year he would make $200,000, and that's curling as a professional. So it wasn't ever something that I could make a life out of. I could make a living out of it for a few years, but it's a young person's sport. A lot of people are in their 20s and early 30s, And then when most of the people that I grew up with got into their mid-30s, had kids, and started realizing, holy smokes, life is kind of expensive, they tended to give it up. And I got to that point that I just sort of looked at it and said, wow, I'm 15th in the world and we made $2,000 last year. And spent every last vacation day that I could traveling to like Nipawin, Saskatchewan. Like, not a very fun time. And I couldn't see myself committing more time to that, which I just wasn't finding too terribly fun.
That makes sense. So I'm going to guess that after that, you transitioned, went the same route that I would say a lot of people are doing. A very popular route. You went to college, you graduated from the University of Manitoba with a degree in commerce. Yeah. Commerce is like the equivalent of a finance degree?
Yeah, business. It was business with majors in finance and entrepreneurship.
Okay, excellent. So then you went into the corporate 9 to 5 kind of rounds. And what was that like for you? It doesn't seem, I mean, just knowing you from your channel and that, it doesn't seem like you're a 9 to 5er.
No. The word that comes to mind as you were describing that was barf.
Yeah.
It was weird. In university, we were all kind of conditioned. It's like brainwashed that you hear these stories about people that say school was invented really just to make worker bees out of everyone and make people compliant. And looking back, that's kind of what it felt like, because I was always kind of going against the grain, doing my own thing. I had little businesses in my teens. I never really dealt well with rules and doing things the way I was just told to do them. And then I get into university, and sure enough, by the time I get out of university, I'm like, wow, I really need to get some nice suits and some good ties. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to get that first finance job, and I'm going to work my way up the corporate ladder. And that corner office, that's success. And I followed that for almost 10 years. And the whole time I was doing it, it never really felt fun. It didn't feel like me, but it just sort of got crushed into me that that's what you do, and everyone just has to accept that that's life.
Right.
And I reached a point that would be about 5 years ago now, 5.5 years ago, that I realized that it just wasn't me. Even those corner office people, the guys that were making $1 million a year with the fancy ties and the fancy shirts and suits and cars, even if I had that, I wasn't going to be happy. So that was sort of the start of trying to work my way out. It just wasn't for me. I have a huge amount of respect for people that are fulfilled by that and like that. It's just not something that jives well with my brain.
So how did you start the transition process of getting out of that?
Originally, I thought it was kind of funny that I went, okay, I'm in business. How do I get out of business? You know what's going to do it? Another business degree. Because again, like, you're just conditioned. All right, well, if a commerce undergraduate degree isn't going to do it, a graduate MBA is going to do it. So I figured I was going to apply to MBA schools, and I did. I applied. I figured I'd reach for the moon and apply to Harvard, Stanford, Kellogg, and I think Wharton. Like, I went way over what I should have. And I haven't cured heart disease or like started a charity. I was like an unsuccessful investment advisor. So I promptly got turned down, and rightfully so. But during that process, while I was applying to these schools, I figured, I got to do something to stand out. And I thought about what I enjoyed the most, and it was doing the sport that at that time I was kind of into and getting a little bit competitive in. It was when I was pushing myself swimming, biking, and running, and trying to do things that I wasn't capable of doing then. And I thought, how can I make some sort of a business, or at least do something special in this? And I liked making videos as an investment advisor while I was promoting myself doing that. And I said, you know what, I'm just going to start a YouTube channel and share some of the things that I've learned about triathlon. That's how this whole thing started. It was really just to pad my resume for these business school applications. But in the process, I learned that I really, really liked it. When I got turned down by the business schools, I was like, oh, thank God, because I'm really enjoying this triathlon thing. And that's how it all started.
When did you do your first triathlon?
Would have been 10 or 11 years ago now.
Okay. So you were still, it was just part of the corporate life. You were just, work, run. And you said it was through a friend. You met a friend, and that's kind of how one of the things about you is that you have this weight loss journey that ties to this whole story of who you are. And that, so you started 10 and 11 years ago. It didn't happen immediately. How long did that really take?
I did my first one 10, 11 years ago. Wasn't very good at all. I didn't try meter swim, a 30-kilometer bike run, and it was okay. I finished second, but there were two guys, 12, so it wasn't that spectacular at all. And it was probably 2 years before I got any sort of handle on what I was doing in the sport, but I was hooked immediately. Right away, I felt alive. You don't feel that excitement of walking up to a start line or crossing a finish line when you're in traffic, or when you're signing a client, or when I'm selling a life insurance deal. Like, I didn't feel that. It was just like, it kind of felt dead inside being a finance guy. And it wasn't until I walked up to those races, or I did a run that was 8K instead of 6K. Like, that was when I really felt like I was doing something, like I was challenging myself and meant something, because I was doing something that I didn't know I could do. And yeah, I was instantly hooked. I wasn't instantly any good at it.
I've had a similar experience this year, actually. I kind of got to the point where I'm about 4 or 5 years out of university now, and kind of just fell into a slump. And I found the same thing with rock climbing at the beginning of the year, where you can just like, you sort of find your edge, you find your limit, and you just kind of like live there, like you find that edge where you're pushing yourself. In education, we call it the zone of proximal development. It's like just above where you're at. But that little zone between where you're at and where you could be next, it's invigorating. And it's something that I don't find as often in professional settings, maybe like you.
Right. Is it like, that sounds similar to Stephen Covey as I think it's Stephen Covey, the sphere of influence, and like,
yeah,
edge of the circle is like, you're always trying to push out that edge, but you can really only get up to that edge of what you can influence. Is it like that?
Yeah, it seems like that. It seems somewhat. I'm not too familiar with that.
Yeah,
but I'll check that out.
That's when you're getting challenged, and
yeah, exactly.
Filling out paperwork, like, no, nobody likes filling out paperwork, but it's what we all do. We're challenged in triathlon, like, or whatever sport it is you might take on.
And it's cool to see somebody do what you did and make that into a career, into a lifestyle and a living, out of that passion, out of that thing that pushed you to your limit, and just going with that, like saying it's a good thing that I can get accepted to this business school, so I'm going to run with this. It's really cool to see that.
Out of this, eh?
Yeah, you would have been going down the path that so many people go down, but I think a lot of the people that I've talked to and I talk to on a daily basis have the same aspirations that you do and don't get that opportunity. So hats off to you there. So you started in 2015 on YouTube, right? You started with eating some bars and doing some, I would say, nutritional reviews of some supplemental products out there, Cliff bars and such.
Oh, homework. That's a pain to go through those videos, man.
Luckily, you can sort by oldest on YouTube. But no, so you start there. Why was that the choice to the community, right? So you're doing triathlons at the point. You love the sport, but you start with eating Cliff bars, not like, hey, I'm gonna go on I'm gonna do a vlog. I guess vlogging 5 years ago wasn't as it is today. But
just bad decisions, really. In a marathon swim that I had done, I think the year prior to doing that first video, I really latched on to figuring out and actually creating a tool and a calculator spreadsheet, just a real glorified spreadsheet about how to calculate what your nutrition should be for swimming, biking, running, or put them all together. You put in your weight, your pace, and out spits how many calories you should take in. And it really, really worked, and worked for a few people that I sent it to. So I figured, all right, well, that's really the only thing in triathlon that I know anything about that's kind of unique. So I'll start a nutrition video company and try to sell nutritional stuff. So I think I bought $4,000 or $5,000 worth of bars, and I ate $4,000 or $5,000 worth of bars because I did not sell one. But it was all just part of the process. I wanted to make videos about something, thought that there had to be a business attached to it or something, and very quickly I just lost interest in selling bars and gels, and really quickly just realized that I like making videos a lot more.
Yeah, I think we've seen that pretty common throughout the people we've talked to is you just got to start. You got to start with something. And so many of these kids who have aspirations, and other people out there who want to do something, it just start somewhere. It might not be exactly where you land, but you started there. And now it seems that you've really latched onto, I mean, you have so much content about nutrition. You seem to be such a dialed in on your nutrition and nutrition in general. And did you take classes? Did you do research, or is this all learned by yourself?
A little bit of both. I took nutrition courses in university because when I originally lost weight, I was 215 pounds at my heaviest, and have been down as low as like 149 at times during like real peak racing season last 2 years ago. And originally I lost the weight from bodybuilding, and bodybuilding is like you learn everything about macros. You learn everything about calories and calories in, calories out, and all kinds of micronutrients about what you should and shouldn't be taking, because bodybuilding is just awful on your body. So they take tons of supplements, air quotes. But I never got into that. I figured like I'm going to do this with multivitamins, and realized that really isn't what the guys are doing. Yeah. But that was the start of it. So it's been well, I'm 37 now, and started that when I was about 23. So like 14 years of looking into nutrition one way or another. And yeah, I've like certified nutrition specialist from someplace, and read a lot about nutrition. But frankly, the best education that I get about anything, whether it's nutrition or training methods or programming for triathlon plan, it's working with a lot of experts and learning from them, because books are great and all, but until you actually learn how people are putting it into practice, I have a hard time gathering a lot of information from it.
The first video I watched of yours was the most recent one that was showing your daily eating routine, I believe. It was from a couple weeks ago, What I Eat in a Day, the 2020 Low Carb Edition. And I really liked how you went in depth to the nutrition aspect of it. And yeah, I admired that a whole lot. How did your nutrition focus change from when you were in the bodybuilding phase to now, where it seems like it's more about optimizing your athletic performance during the races? Is that true? Is that a fair assessment?
Oh yeah, very much. That's a long answer. In bodybuilding days, you eat strictly for function, and the function is to look good. So there is no enjoyment of it. It's boiled chicken breast, brown rice, oatmeal, and protein powder, and that's about it. Egg whites, lots of egg whites, and it's really not healthy. Like, it gives you a pretty unhealthy relationship with food from an addictive quality standpoint. And I actually have a friend that he had to drop out of school because he was preparing for our provincial novice bodybuilding championship, which he won, but he couldn't study for exams because he would be looking at a book and thinking about cupcakes. And like he literally couldn't focus on anything besides food. And that's kind of what your life is like for forever as a bodybuilder. So really, really different. When I started doing triathlon, I didn't have any sort of idea that there was a certain way that it was unique to endurance sports that you should be eating, but I knew that deprivation wasn't something that you needed to do because you're processing tons of calories as a triathlete. So I just ate a lot, and I've never been lean, so I wasn't very lean. But I slowly, over the last couple of years, have been exposed to some really, really good researchers, and somebody who's recently become my coach over the last year, and learned that nutrition, not just from the standpoint of like, well, you've got to fuel your body, but the way you time nutrition, the way that you time certain carbs, the types of carbs that you bring in, you can turn all these dials one way or another, much the same way bodybuilders do, but in a much more healthy way, to elicit an even better training response. And the feeling that I have, that these researchers have, is that you can get the effects of about a 25-hour training week as a triathlete with only 15 hours if you're doing your diet right.
Wow, that's huge. That's time savings, and I'm sure a massive improvement in your function of an athlete.
Oh, it's enormous. Yeah. Really, there's a small amount of people who can train more than 20 hours a week, and the ones that are, as age groupers, probably don't have time to. So there's tons and tons of age groupers doing these 25, 30-hour weeks that are racing like garbage because they don't have the time to recover from that because they're busy and everything else. So what really is more appropriate is more like a 10 to 17-hour training week. So because you're not training as much as pros, you got to make up for that with something else, and you can make up for that with diet. And that's been a big learning process. I'm still going through a lot of figuring with it, but it's been really interesting because there's a methodical way that you can do it.
I appreciated how methodical your videos were too, with just breaking down. I think you said you were at, was it 60, 22, 18 with fat, protein, carbohydrates, something like that, right?
I don't know. I just say things, Drew. I don't know.
You can't say this. I'm like listening to you like, oh, I got to take some of this advice. He's just saying stuff to me. No, I found that very interesting too, because I've kind of been almost forced into a low carbohydrate diet the past couple months. It's been quite strange. I don't know if it's me, if it's my body changing with me approaching 30 or something like that, but it seems within the past couple months I've developed some sort of gluten intolerance. And all of my favorite foods, Mike can tell you, I love pizza, I love pasta, I love making them from scratch. And I've just had to, like, it's been 2 or 3 months I've been trying to figure out why I'm feeling lethargic. I'm getting like skin rashes and stuff, to give you too much information right now.
I'm in the gluten intolerant camp, so yeah, I get it.
Yeah, and it was strange. Just cutting out gluten for 3 days, it just stopped. Just completely stopped.
Really?
And it's bizarre. It's bizarre, yeah. So I do look up to your low-carb diet videos, as I'm certainly not a triathlon athlete by any means.
Still now.
At that level, but I find it to be very good guidelines, yeah.
Do you feel good now? Like,
I feel great. Yeah. Yeah, I feel great. I've switched to a lot of healthy fats, a lot of nut butters. I know you emphasize that in the videos. One thing I really liked in one of your videos, you showed, it was the video about, I think it was called Why I Got Fat on a Low Carb Diet. And you did a comparison between what 100 calories of nut butter looks like, 100 calories of a pork chop, 100 calories as a whole apple, and then a whole bag of spinach. Yeah. And that was such a cool visual, showing how, yeah, you can Because I could do the same thing. I could sit there with a jar of peanut butter and just go spoonful by spoonful, and I could get probably 1,000 calories deep before I even know it. But eating a whole bag of spinach is different. That takes time. It's gonna fill up all that volume in your stomach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be both. Like for anyone listening, basically what my experience is there's two ways that you can get full. And what I was getting at in that video is I get full off of volume, whereas some people get full off of calories. So there's one colleague that I work with who he can have a coffee with a bunch of MCT oil and butter, which doesn't fill you up at all. Like, it doesn't fill any volume up, but it gives him 200, 300, 400 calories to start the day. And he's like, oh, I'm good for 5 hours. And I'm like, oh my God, I need to have a bowl of soup and on and on and on, like to fill up my stomach, because I get full off of volume, and that's how most people are. So when a lot of people go low carb, they just eat and eat and eat and eat because they need to feel full. And yeah, that's been a big thing for me that I'm still working on.
Yeah. Yeah, same here.
The nut butter is so much more delicious than a bag of spinach.
There's no question about that one.
No arguing that one. Yeah.
So it seems like you've tried a lot of these diets. You've tried plant-based, I saw.
Not really. I think that's kind of how people interpreted it. I tried to cut down the amount of processed meat that I had and eat mostly whole food, plant-based, but every couple of days I would definitely have meat, and I never said that I was vegan, but I'm much more study as opposed to philosophical based. The studies all show that once you get to about 85-90% whole food plant-based, you've got most of the benefits from a health standpoint. But people take that to the end where they say, well, all right, well, I'm full vegan and only eating whole food plant-based. And that's just, there aren't any studies that show that is 100% compliant is healthier. So yeah, I ate a lot of whole food plant-based, but I'd still have chicken wings every couple of nights and pepperoni here and there. But it was like, 80-90% plant-based.
That's cool. And going off what you said, that with the whole food plant-based diet, you obviously are getting a lot of nutrients from those whole foods. One of the things I was kind of curious about, and I don't want to come off as like one of the internet trolls, it's like, why are you doing this? Like, defend your position. But I was genuinely curious in the same 2020 diet routine, you were showing your supplement regimen. And one of the ones at the end, I think that you said you took it at night, was just a vitamin C supplement. And I was kind of curious, you must be getting a significant amount of vitamin C from the whole food plant-based diet. And even on that bag of spinach in that one video, I noticed like one serving of the spinach had like 45% of your daily intake of vitamin C. So I was kind of curious.
Why?
Yeah. Without sounding like an internet troll, and coming from a place of genuine curiosity, because I haven't gotten that far into analyzing my own nutrition. Yeah, sort of like why? It's a short question. Why?
That's an easy one. I test very low with, I haven't talked about this a lot, but there's a video coming that my hormones and my body is a little effed up. Back in 2017, I think I came into that with a little bit of stress. It was a tougher time in my life because I was starting a business and ramping down being a financial advisor, so a lot of stress. And then I added in a poor training plan on top of it. And by the end of one season, I was so overtrained that I got sick 5 times that following winter. Was feeling actually like depressed, lying in bed one Friday crying, not knowing if I was going to be able to do triathlon. And meanwhile, I was trying to be Triathlon Taren. And what we found was that my hormones were really, really low. My white blood cell count really, really low. And I still battle that. That's something that when you are in the business of doing triathlons for a living, that stuff doesn't fix itself very easily. So still, when I get blood tests now, my white blood cell counts are quite low, and we try to boost that up a little bit, or at least kind of help my body a little bit through that with some vitamin C. So that's the reason for lots and lots of vitamin C.
I appreciate the honesty and the openness with that. I think that also shows how nutrition is a very personal thing, and it's probably very beneficial to speak with professionals about it. Yeah.
We're working with a fellow named Evan Brand right now. He's a functional medicine doctor out of Kentucky, and
That's my neck of the woods.
Oh yeah, he's interesting. Right, first thing on his website is something like test, don't guess, and it's perfect because when I talk to him, he just goes through tests and he's like, all right, so you have this and this, and are you having symptoms like this? Yeah. Oh, okay, that relates to this and this and this. Instead of just sitting there and going like, well, you gained weight because you overate. Like just picking things out of the air. So we've actually got data to figure out what's going on with me, and I think that's really important because there's a lot that you can screw up with your body, especially if you're a triathlete that's doing Ironmans. You're riding a pretty fine line between health and
it's that limit. It's that same limit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I had a question too. What is one bad piece of nutrition advice that you followed that you would not do again?
Ooh, fasted training. Ooh. That would be one.
That sounds miserable.
Which is one that the triathletes who hear that I do more low carb are like, what are you talking about? There is very little data that shows fasted training is any better for your fat metabolism than carb fasted training. So coming into a workout completely fasted with nothing in your stomach versus coming in with a little bit of fat and protein but no carbs, they kind of end up functioning the same. But fasted training outright can just destroy your body and your immune system and your hormones, and you can come back and all that weight that you might have lost during the fasted training, you eat 10 times as much because you're hungry later in the day. And it sort of gets wrapped up in this thing like, oh yeah, pull this lever, and it's weird that basically everyone wants to if you give somebody an inch, they want to take a mile. Basically, if you give somebody, all right, do low carb, all right, well, I'm going to do the most low carb. All right, you don't have to have immense amounts of food. All right, I'm going to have no food. So I fell into that for a little while and was doing some fasted training. Really didn't work very well for me, and got hungry. And as you're dealing with lower hormones, that's probably not a thread you want to tug at.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
So that would be like intermittent fasting. So you'd go out, you'd wake up and immediately go on like a run, not having eaten in the morning or something like that. That's kind of what you're. Wow.
Yeah, basically.
And so now you're following a totally opposite route where you wake up, you have your morning routine that we know, you decaf coffee, then you go and you sit with your pup, which my dog does a very similar thing. Not as aggressively stares at me as yours, but
I told Mike I don't think I've laughed as hard in the past couple weeks as when I saw the way that your dog stares at you over the computer. It's so funny. It's adorable.
I don't even have to set that up. Like, really do that? Like, yeah, I don't even have to try for this.
It's her daily routine.
Oh yeah.
She's a gorgeous dog. Is she a silver Labrador? Weimaraner?
Charcoal lab. So
charcoal lab. Okay.
Chocolate, and charcoal comes from black. And
okay, cool.
That was my wife's first dog, and she wasn't a real big dog person. So she needed this fancy custom color, $1,300 dog that we had to drive 2 provinces over. Had to be a female so that she could bond with her. She wouldn't like her. And then a couple of years later, we get a mutt that grew up in a garbage can, a guy. And who does she like better? The $300 garbage can dog.
Yep.
not her fancy multiple $1,000 custom dog.
That's funny.
Hey, garbage can dogs are great. I have 2 of them. They're fantastic.
Oh yeah, they're
Yeah.
the best.
Oh yeah.
They know how good they got it.
Yes, they
That's a
do.
good point. Yeah, that's true.
They have a little bit of perspective on life, unlike the pampered poodles of the world.
Yeah. Well, my lab, she grew up on heated ceramic tile floors, and like just had this magical Labrador daycare. Prissy is all hell, but she's a lab, so she still eats her own poop. Like,
Yep.
I'm so regal, but I eat my own poop.
Yeah.
My mom
for the
has
flavor.
a silver Labrador, and I think that you just perfectly described her as well.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so I think another major factor for you and your channel is the pain cave, right?
Mm.
So how long have you been in this location that you're at today, this home?
2.5 years.
Okay, so it was into the channel. Did you have a previous pain cave before that?
I had a towel on in the sunroom. That was my pain cave.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to pull my trainer out and pull the bike out and work out on the towel. That was it.
And then so when you moved here, you knew that this it's a garage, correct?
It's a garage that's nicer than my first house. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well,
It looks very impressive.
so
I was
that
watching the. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, you went into this knowing like we're gonna get into this place. This is gonna be my pain cave, or was this like slowly as you moved in, you made it the pain cave over time?
We had an office when I had business, my own business. We had an office downtown, and slowly the triathlon thing was becoming a bigger and bigger part of that business. And eventually it got to the point that we really weren't doing a lot of client work. It was pretty much just all triathlon stuff. And we do the odd client job here and there for some consulting gigs to friends, but not a lot of ongoing work. So we didn't have people coming and going to our office. And I was like, I'm commuting 30 minutes there, 30 minutes back. I can't put any treadmills or dumbbells in this loft office. So we shut down that office, and I just used that monthly lease money to build this place. So the whole purpose was to basically have a place for our business, and it was a bit of a leap of faith, because I can't invite clients that I'm doing consulting work for a meeting in my garage where there's like sweaty shirts and sweaty heart rate monitors. Like, oh yeah, just push that aside. We'll chat here. I have done that a couple times. Those clients did not stick around for very long.
I guess you got to find the right client.
Yeah, haven't found them yet.
So you just did the most recent major upgrade. It looked like it was back in October of the previous year, right?
Yeah, we made
made
room for the swim spa in behind me.
Yeah, and you rearranged a lot of the stuff. I was curious what's been working really well since that big update. You've had it for about 7 or 8 months. What do you really like?
Look, well, I really like the swim spa. Number one, that is really good. So it's like a treadmill for swimming. But the cool thing is that we've got mirrors on the bottom. So I've struggled with having a left arm that just didn't swim quite right for 10 years. It was straight, and I just couldn't get it to bend. I put the mirrors in, and 4 strokes. Like, oh, that's how you bend it. Perfect.
Yeah.
Instead of 9 years of work. So that's really cool. We've got 1/4-inch rubber flooring. That's actually awesome for deadening sound. It was echoey in here, and instantly we rolled out all this flooring, and it just knocks the sound right down. I haven't had to put up sound panels since that happened.
I thought it was interesting how you addressed the air quality inside of there too, regarding the floor.
I wouldn't say it's great. I still wouldn't say it's great. It still smells like a gym in here.
Yeah.
Put gym floors in, you're gonna probably smell like a gym. And
yeah, it does. It does.
So I have a question about the swim spa. What's the pace that you can go at? Where does it go to?
It's not overly fast. For like 70% of triathletes, it's going to be fast enough. I can outswim it. And what actually I've found is even the fast, like the real fast, endless pools out there that go like Olympic kind of pace, most even fast swimmers don't put it at that pace because it's really different than the pool, because you're not necessarily moving your head through the water. The water is moving around your head, so when you turn to breathe, it doesn't create the same pocket. So most athletes that have those real fast, like swim treadmills, basically, they actually put it on a lower setting and then swim with a tether around their butt, so that they get a nicer swim quality, but they can still swim really fast. So it swims like, if you're going in meter or minutes per 100 meters, like maybe a 130.
Oh, wow.
Thereabouts. So like fast-ish, but not really super fast. But if I ever do any real fast swimming, I just put the tether on and keep it at that 140 kind of speed.
That's really smart, because I was a swimmer in college, and I've always been interested. Michael Phelps had a whole deal with a swim spa, and I was like, you're never going to be able to get to like an aerobic threshold. And I never thought about it going over your face, but that I have seen recently with the current, situation in the world, some people using spas or pools like that with a tether, and that makes total sense. I've never seen that until now, and that's really, really interesting. Thank you for that. That's great.
Yeah, I highly recommend them. I haven't actually tried the like just a normal pool with the tether.
Yeah.
That's a little different because you have no current whatsoever, but I like it in this. It's
we did
good.
a lot of tether work on the opposite way in college. So speed training. So you would stay at one side of the wall, and then someone would basically take a big rubber band, and you had a belt on, and they'd go to the other side of the pool, and then you'd swim as fast as you can. And there's two people just roping this thing in to get you as fast as possible, so that when you're fully rested and race ready, you kind of understand what the bubble looks like, all those kind of features, what your stroke technique looks like at speed, which was really interesting.
Yeah, Reese Barkley, Lucy Charles Barkley's husband, told me that that's what they used to do.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's just the best thing, because all of a sudden, like, you feel, it's like you feel what it's like to move fast. So in your mind, all of a sudden, it's like, oh, I can swim a minute per 100.
Yeah, no, it really helps. And we would do it towards the end of the season, getting towards taper, so that you're starting to feel better, your body's starting to recover a little bit more, and now you're starting to feel what that race pace, like all those feelings start to come out, and it just really evokes a mental change going into the end of the season. It's great.
Oh man.
But
let me give that a try.
You should. It's not only great, but it's super fun. It's great. Like you just fly across. So like Olympic Training Center, they have a whole rope system in the ceiling that like can rip you at like really fast paces. So
really,
yeah, there's some pretty cool stuff out there.
I'll so take a watch selfie when I've got like average 58 seconds per 100 meters, because I've done only band pull swimming. I'm doing it.
You should, yeah, and definitely post that on. Say, look how fast I've gotten on my 25.
Oh yeah, I'll be like, lockdown worked.
That's awesome. So what else do you have in your paint? So you have the swim spa. That's awesome. You have a weight training session area. How often are you lifting? How do you manage that time commitment, like lifting versus the riding, cycling, running, swimming?
Depends on the season, the type of season. Like October to January, it's probably 2-3 half-hour to 45-minute sessions lifting a week, and then they're intense, like heavy lifting. And then as the race season comes around, it gets down to like 1 or maybe 0 30-minute sessions of strength in the race season, and it's like lighter, much lighter stuff, more maintenance, just a little bit of core work and small little stretchy band stuff.
Mm-hmm.
In the middle of Ironman training, I feel dumpy. But right now with lockdown, trying to lift 3 times a week and like put the focus on that.
You doing like squat, deadlift, bench press, or Are you doing like power cleans, snatches?
Just bicep curls, heavy bicep curls.
Curls for the girls.
Yeah. Mostly, I really like hex bar deadlifts. Hex bar deadlifts. A little bit, not a lot of squats. That tends to jerk around with my back a little bit. It's tough to explain. Like, it's a lot of body activation stuff, plyometrics, some explosive movements, so some cleans, either heavy hex bar deadlifts or really light hex bar deadlifts, but jumping as I'm doing them. What else would I do? I do some Indian club work and steel mace work for stability. Plyometrics kind of changes a lot just based on how I'm feeling. If I'm feeling like I really want to get after it, it'll be one of the heavier days with heavy hex bar deadlifts. If I'm feeling a little beat up from swim, bike, run, it'll be more mobility movement, like just making sure everything's turning pretty well with kettlebells and things like that. And if it's somewhere in between, it'll be more of a plyometric kind of workout.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about if you could talk kind of about your recovery process on the opposite end of that, in terms of if you have a stretching routine or if you incorporate any yoga into your recovery or your training programs. I know you had a video showing you going to goat yoga from a few years ago, but I was curious if you had any more tie-ins with yoga or stretching or even any breathing techniques or mental training, aside from what just naturally comes from mental training through being a triathlete, I'm sure.
Yeah, don't say that. The mental state of many triathletes is pretty fragile, as we've learned. Races go away and we all turn into a bunch of whiny bitches. Like, oh, I can't deal with races. Like, it's been 3 weeks. Get over yourself. So, you know what? It's an odd thing for me to answer. I put a lot of emphasis on recovery, and you wouldn't think that I'd be dealing with poor hormones and sleep disturbances and weight gain right now. You'd think that I'd be handling it fairly well, but it's more the opposite. It's kind of chicken and the egg thing. I put that huge amount of focus on recovery to try to combat the hormones and the weight gain and just try to keep myself together. So it's kind of been by necessity that I've got to focus on that. So meditation every morning, a little bit of breathing at night, like some box breathing of just deep breathing and getting ready for bed and being relaxed. It's more about making sure that I offset hard training with hard recovery.
Okay.
So in here, when I'm normally working, you won't see me sitting up. You'll see me lying down, and there's a grounding mat underneath me, and I've got this little desk that we're sitting on that angles the computer towards me, and I keep my feet up. So it's lying down, it's relaxed, and offsetting hard training with hard recovery, which is a lot of just eating well, making sure that I'm taking time off my feet, not relaxing by doing yard work or by doing something stressful or things like that. So it makes me be a little bit of a turd, like not taking the dogs for super long walks and heavy Ironman training or doing much gardening or housework around there. But it's kind of how I've had to give somewhere, because I get beat up pretty quickly by training.
So what is that? You're talking about Ironman. You've completed a half? Have you completed a full?
Yeah, I completed a full distance in Challenge Roth. So it's not an Ironman branded race, but it's an Ironman distance race last year.
Awesome. Okay, so last year is your first full. What does a heavy week look like for you? What kind of mileage are you putting bike, swim, run down on like just average?
I can give you sort of a quick breakdown of how a week would go. So Monday would be about a 90-minute ride in the morning that's kind of strength focused, low gear work, and then a 1 hour swim or run later in the day. Tuesday would be a 3 hour bike and then probably a 1 hour run. Wednesday would be a 90-minute run and a 90-minute swim. Thursday would be about another 3-hour bike with another 1-hour run. Friday would be a 1-hour run as a recovery. Saturday would be anywhere from a 4 to 6 hour ride with a half-hour run after. And then Sunday would be anywhere from 90-minute to 3-hour run, and then probably also a 45-minute swim. So it totals, last year it was around, I think, 17 hours a week on average, which is actually kind of low for a lot of, say, the more competitive age group triathletes. But I'm more about being effective as opposed to being impressive. As far as like, I'm training to race. I'm not training to train.
Right.
Okay.
That makes sense. I mean, that's a pretty heavy week. I just think
That's
of it
very
as
impressive.
from a time standpoint of right now. I wish sometimes I can go out on an hour-long run, and that's a great day. Me, but
it's like swimming. I mean, you swam competitively. There was a time that a 2K swim would have been big for you, and probably by the end of your career, you're probably knocking off like 8K swims.
Yeah, we were doing the most yardage that we did. My high school had this thing called Texas Ranger Day. I was in the high 25,000 yards for the day. Yeah, maybe even like 28, 29. I don't remember exactly, but you hit a point where you're just like a zombie. Like our coaches would come up, they'd spray you with cold water. You'd be like, whoa, what's going on? And they'd like give you like gummy bear. It's just not something you should ever do ever. But it doesn't help you.
I've done 2 marathon swims. I get it. It melts your brain because it's just like you're looking at nothing.
Nothing.
For like 7 hours.
At least running, you're out. You can talk to people. Swimming, it's just like you get like maybe in a set workout, you get maybe like 25 seconds with someone to talk, and it's usually like, okay, are we on number 7 or number 8? And they're like, we're on number 4. I'm like, what the heck? And then you go.
We did the last marathon swim I did. It was 37K. So miles is I gotta think here, about 25, 26 miles.
Yeah.
And we did it in water that's so murky. If your hand is like 2 inches in front of your nose, you can't see it. And so number one, your brain just kind of goes to mush because you're not seeing anything or thinking about anything. But then on top of it, the 2 guys that I did it with, they're really good swimmers, like world-class kind of swimmers, and I'm crap. So, and the water was so cold that they swam away from me. We were supposed to, every 30 minutes, we were supposed to stop for a nutrition break. I'd swim up, they would wait for me, and then they'd go and we'd separate and just accordion back and forth.
Oh,
well,
no.
At the first stop, it was so cold that they were like, we can't wait for him. So they took off. So I had 8.5 hours thinking we're not friends anymore. This is crap. Wait for me. We're supposed to do this together. Like 8.5 hours of hatred. And then I get out of the water and they're like, yeah, sorry we had to take off because the water was so cold. I'm like, oh yeah, of course. Sorry, guys. Can't believe I was so mad at you.
That's some mental training right there. So let's talk about some swimming stuff. So you like Drew and myself are obviously very much into gear. What are you running? What's your whole setup? What are you running from a let's not talk about like, cap and booties and gloves, but wetsuit. I know you got a new one. What's your bike? What's your shoes? That kind of stuff that you're running.
Ooh, geez. Ooh, like, are we talking race day? Because that's a long list of gear that I've got.
Well, we could talk about, you don't have to go into like every little detail, but like, the major factors. So what's your wetsuit that you're running that you're currently running?
Roka. Roka is the wetsuit that I use. I have liked Roka basically since 2013. I met those guys when they were small, tiny little company, just the founders. They took a chance on me and gave me a wetsuit for the very first marathon swim that I did. I had no following at the time. They just did me a solid and set me up with a wetsuit. And that was a revolutionary wetsuit in the triathlon world. And I've been fans of theirs ever since. And still their wetsuits that they come out with are not as head and shoulders above everyone else, but they're still the best wetsuits out there. Flexible, buoyant, comfortable, all those good things. So Roka, basically head to toe for my swim gear. Biking, I've got a road bike, I've got a tri bike. I work with Ventum on that. On the running gear, yeah, lots and lots of stuff, but say the shoes, the ones that really stick out are Nike has a really strong shoe lineup right now. Their daily trainers, the Infinity runs, they're so fast for daily trainers, but still you can get a lot of miles out of them. And the Nike 4%, like the super engineered Nikes, they're legitimately an unfair advantage.
Wow.
And like Nike went from having just kind of crap shoes to hands down the best shoes in the world.
Well, it's an Olympic year, so that makes there's no shock there. They got to come out with something, especially with the marathon being under, such a great race and a great thing to watch. They got to get their branding throughout that whole thing. And watching them come out with it doesn't shock me too, because they did this whole series of trying to break that 2-hour marathon route. So that's good, because I have the same mentality on the Nike world. I always thought it was like trash shoes. They're always like kind of consumer grade, but I've heard this more and more consistently from so many other people that it's like they've really stepped up. But have you gone down the path of like the Hokas, or I know that Asics, some guys just left Asics and they started another company. It's like 365 or something like that.
Yeah, I haven't tried those. The Hokas I use regularly and have a good relationship with them. I'll use them more for like daily training, just long runs or kind of the going out for an hour and just getting in an easy run kind of runs. But I don't look at any one of their shoes and like that shoe serves a really good purpose. I think they have great shoes, but there's nothing that I'm like, wow, it's head and shoulders above what's out there. And there's lots and lots of triathletes out there that are actively giving up shoe sponsorships, like letting their shoe sponsorships lapse so that they can run unpaid in Nikes.
Huh.
Wow.
Yeah, that says a lot.
That's crazy. So on a different note, where did the term Trainiac come from? And how did you create this cultural name?
I have no idea where it came from. I remember reading a book that I can't remember what it was. It was something about how to create a tribe, how to create a group, a community. And there were tips of like, you've got to have a common language and yada, yada, on and on, but you've got to have a word for your people. Mm-hmm. And Trainiac just came up. I used it one day and my wife said, don't ever say that again. You sound like an idiot. And I'll admit that it still sounds kind of corny, but that's sort of the point, that it's people who are really intense about, I think, having fun with their training, and that's the point. It's people that don't take themselves too seriously, and I just kept saying it. And now we've had world champion Patrick Lange start videos unrequested by us with morning Trainiacs, or our athletes when they're out on course and they've got our race kit on, they'll get yelled at like, go Trainiac, and like, you can't buy that stuff.
Yeah, that's cool.
You created a brand. I think it's an iconic word in your community, and that's awesome to hear that people can, in the community of triathlon, which is a tight-knit community in itself, we'll see it, and you've created such a wave throughout it. It's awesome.
Well, it's cool. I think we're honored that people would associate themselves with being a Trainiac, because it's a corny name, and I think it takes guts for people to do it. And I mean, we love it so much that the fact that people identify with it is the coolest thing we've ever done. And we're going through some rebranding now of like, there's Taren, but then we've got all these things that we sell, but the things that we sell don't really have like a brand or a company around them, and we're just doing some rebranding so that we're actually going to make the word Trainiac in the forefront, because the Trainiacs of the world are way more important as a collective than me doing my videos or one race. And we're going to take that Trainiac word and create a brand around it and celebrate the people that are out there in the world that are being Trainiacs. And that is the word, that whether it's 2T or TT or T4 or T2 or whatever it is, like people smarter than me are coming up with how we use Trainiac as a brand. But we just thought about it at one point. We're like, we've had 4 years of basically focus grouping, and people like Trainiac, and I like it.
It works for sure.
Yeah, it works. And it's a great way. You always have the same opening. You got the term to talk to the people. It really works.
I want to go back to gear for a second, actually, because I loved the video that you did comparing a road bike to a tri bike, because I'm a gearhead too, and I love breaking things down. And the way that you broke down how the geometry of the frames and the body position, and I think you even said that the change in angle or the body position has made a difference of like 16 minutes overall with some people in their overall time. And I think that's pretty incredible. I think it's cool how when you get to a certain level of competition, the gear has a big impact. That's true with surfing, for example. Like, you could be a beginner surfer, and it doesn't matter if you're on a beginner board or an expert board, you're not going to be surfing that well. You're going to be falling in the water. But when you get to that elite level, the difference of an inch in a surfboard makes a massive difference in the performance for the surfer. Or like the fin setup or something like that. And it'd be the same for a type of shoe that a rock climber's wearing, just things like that. In this case, it was the bike frame, which I thought was super interesting to make that much of a difference. And I was wondering if there was any little tweak that you've kind of been nerding out on recently with your gear that's made a difference in your performance in a similar way.
Ooh, with the bike?
Not necessarily with the bike specifically, but any of the 3 major categories of gear between swim, bike, and run. Has there anything that you've like tried to optimize that's made a big difference in your performance just by optimizing gear, no fitness?
One thing that, it wouldn't be gear, but something that really shocked me was Amp Human. They're a company out of Park City, Utah, and they make this lotion, this yellow, goopy, mustardy looking kind of lotion. And as it was going around about 18 months ago, I was like, talk about snake oil. I'm going to rub lotion on my body, and all of a sudden I'm going to be superhuman. And they ended up sending me some to try. And I had a hard workout to do, and put the lotion on, and had a killer workout. And I went, holy jeez, I don't know if it's the lotion or something else, but I need to bottle up whatever happened in that workout and do it again. So I used the lotion more and more, and then started looking into it, and I learned that there's like a half a dozen things out there in sports science that actually is proven to basically 100% improve your performance. And it's things like caffeine, it's
I wanted to ask you about caffeine too.
Nitrates, creatine, whey protein, like things that everyone would say, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But then one of them is sodium bicarbonate. Nobody ever hears about sodium bicarbonate because to drink it is putrid. You'd throw up. So nobody's ever used it, because even when it sits in your stomach, you start burping it up and you need to puke.
Is that baking soda? Am I getting confused?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Basically. So what they figured out how to do with this Amp Human PR lotion was a delivery mechanism in the cream that it gets that bicarbonate into your muscles through a cream, so you don't have to eat it.
Interesting.
And that's been one thing that has really jumped out to me, like, wow, this helps a lot. And they don't, like, they give me PR lotion, but they don't sponsor me. There's no cash changing hands. But like just this morning, I gave some to a pro triathlete here locally. I'm like, here, give this a try. Like I sing its praises because it's one of the things that lately has been a real serious game changer.
So is it a lotion that you apply before a workout? And if so, like where? Are you applying it to like the areas that you're targeting during that workout? Like if you're doing bicep curls or something, are you going to just slather up your biceps and go for it?
Yeah, it's on the active muscles. So
okay.
It's
really interesting.
I put it on my quads, my hamstrings, my butt, and my lower back.
That's
So
really interesting. I've
all
never
around.
heard of that.
And it helps buffer, essentially like that feeling of burn that you get when you start getting tired. It buffers that.
Wow, cool. And what about caffeine? I wanted to ask you just briefly about caffeine.
Magic.
It is magic. I've liked going down the rabbit hole of the different ways of consuming caffeine. And I've gone from, just black espresso for a while. And I was telling Mike before the call, I've really liked matcha recently. I found that matcha tea gives me a very nice, even, sustained caffeine buzz without the sort of like peakiness of coffee. And I wondered if you've gone through any similar experiences like that or adventures down the caffeine rabbit hole.
Yeah, I drank a lot of it. Just being an endurance athlete. Lately, I've just to make sure that I get good sleep. I can take a nap if I need to take a nap. I try to drink decaf when I'm at home, and then that allows me to kind of ramp up my caffeine and actually get a good effect from it on race day. So last year when I did the Ironman, I probably hadn't had caffeine in maybe like a lot of caffeine in maybe 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Well, I have a coffee first thing in the morning. I felt like I should rip phone books apart by the time the race went. And then I raced, and on the run, I take cola. I take whatever Coke they've got on the run course. So again, caffeine, I felt like the Hulk.
So do you usually cut out caffeine before you're going into a race, or was that just by chance?
A little bit by chance, but I just sort of stick with it now so that I can still get a little bit of a kick when I need it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really notice a difference between, as long as you get a good decaf, I don't really notice a difference in taste between decaf and coffee. So at home, I just switch it to decaf. We stopped at a coffee shop after the ride this morning, and I had a grande dark roast, and I don't really think anything of it, but just when it's an easy switch to go to decaf, I'll grab decaf.
Yeah. So let's go back to Kona. It's an honor to qualify for Kona, and congratulations. That's amazing.
I haven't qualified.
You haven't qualified. Oh, you just tried to qualify. So to qualify, you have to be top 1 or 2 in a age group race, right?
Basically, yeah. There's a number of spots that are allocated to each age group. Because I'm in the Shark Tank, the 35 to 39 age category, They allocate more spots because there are some races that our age category is actually 25% of the entire race.
Wow.
So we get a lot of spots. So I've got to anticipate somewhere like top 4.
Mm-hmm.
And what is your 2020? Well, what did your 2020 race schedule look like?
It was going to be a half Ironman in Galveston to start off with. It's good to have a race on the calendar just mentally to train for. It makes the training actually make some sense, and actually to get some race speed in you. Like nothing makes you race fit like racing. So I was going to start off with a half Ironman, and then I was going to try to qualify for Kona at Ironman Cork in Ireland, and specifically wanted to go there because the climate is very similar to Winnipeg. It's cold, it's awful, it's windy, it's people are fair-skinned like me, so kind of like going home basically. Try to do a race there, and after that it was going to be a game time decision and figure out based on how that race went if I started ramping up for Kona or take another crack at trying to qualify for Kona in September to get to next year's Kona. But essentially no racing this year, so no Kona.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Everything that I had planned is on the same boat.
Yeah, it's there are worse things to worry about than not being able to race, but just it's a knock to your psyche when you wrap up your self-worth in training.
Yeah, and that's been some huge changes. So maybe we could talk about how your plans for the rest of 2020 have had to change, probably on a rolling basis. It's like new news comes out every day, every week, and you kind of just got to change your plans as you go along. Do you have any major personal or business plans looking ahead for 2020 since racing is kind of off the table?
Well, I'm actually taking this rest of the year basically to accept that I'm not going to be racing. Not a lot of people are going to be racing. We don't know if it's going to happen. One thing that I know for sure is a couple of things, might be TMI, but I've got varicose vein issues. Anyone that follows me on Instagram knows that I got a big gross varicose vein on my right leg, and we've had actually a lot of followers who are vein surgeons, vascular surgeons, reach out and say like, that is really not safe. So we're actually going to pay to have it done from a private clinic here because I can control it. Like I don't have to race. I don't have to be fit. So in the next, I think, month, I'm gonna go in for that surgery, get that taken care of, and rest up. Just like literally rest up. Training might max out at 9 hours a week. Let my hormones relax, recover, and it's probably going to mean that becoming fit enough to qualify for Kona might not happen next year because I'll have to come back and basically train just to be able to train again.
Yeah.
Which might take 3 to 6 months to do. But it means that the ceiling of what I'm going to be capable of doing is going to be better. Like maybe this year I could have qualified for Kona, but it might have fried me. And I might not have ever really raced competitively again because I'd be grinding my physiology into the ground.
Right.
But if I can take 6 or 7 months just to chill out when there are no races to worry about anyway, and let my body recover again, it's a good time.
Yeah.
Good time for it. So kind of fortuitous.
Yeah. And how about business-wise? I know I watched one of your videos, I think it was from 2017, and at that point you were saying that doing Triathlon Taren full-time was sort of the dream and sort of the goal. I think at the time you said you were still working with your small consulting company locally. It sounds like you've made steps since 2017 to achieve that dream. Is that the case, that in 2020 right now you are doing that full-time in terms of your branding, your business? And what are the plans for the rest of 2020 since you might have some more time to focus on that business?
Yeah, if you were saying that we'd work full-time on Triathlon Taren, that would be doing a disservice to people who have to work for a living. So yes, Triathlon Taren is full-time. It's all we do. We don't have to take on any other clients. We're very lucky to do that. It is growing to be a legitimate business. We've got our app, teamtrainiac.com. We have, I think, 6 developers in the Ukraine working on that, a designer and a lead developer in London. We have email marketing people. I think she's in Seattle. Like probably 10 or so subcontractors all around the world working on parts of whether it's our app or publishing books. We've got another book that we're publishing in the next few months. Like we're just very fortunate that I can make a living in my swim trunks and a free t-shirt.
But it's very admirable at the same time too, because it's admirable to see people following their passions and following what has impacted them and their lives and turning that into a way to impact other people's lives.
I tell you, it feels a lot better than trying to sell mutual funds.
Well, my only final question would be, so your wife is the named No Triathlon Kim.
That's right.
NTK.
Is there ever going to be a race, or is it fully never? Not even like a fun, never, nothing.
Never. It's not a Triathlon Kim. It's never Triathlon Kim. Not a chance. She might do a running race. I can see that maybe happening, but she doesn't like getting her hair wet. And she really only likes biking if she's on an electric bike or a dog is pulling her. So I don't know. She might do the Iditarod one day. Like I don't know, but no, she loves triathlon. She loves triathletes. She loves the friends we've made. She loves the sport. She will actually make a point of turning on Ironman live broadcast before I will and following the sport. She loves going to Kona. She follows all the athletes, talks with a lot of them over Instagram, and keeps me updated on what they're doing, but just doesn't want to do the race. Just doesn't have a desire to do the swim.
I can't blame her. So I guess I have another thing, and then I'll leave it here. So it seems like you follow the suite of almost every triathlon magazine, and your wife falls into that category. The most popular videos you have are about swimming, and
Yeah.
that falls into the suite. You're bringing that reassurance that it's not that difficult. As long as you put these 5 things in, you can get through the swim. You can do this. And you're really inspirational in that, and I think it's great. I don't know if that's a question or more of a statement, but you're really assuring those people. And why do you think the swim is so mentally hard for people?
It scares the hell out of people. You stick your face in the water and you can't breathe. And people who are adults that have gone through their life not having to stick their face in the water and all of a sudden not be able to breathe, but have to do high exertion sports, like they freak out. They just they hyperventilate. And more than anything, what we hear from people is they decide to do a triathlon, don't know what they're getting into. They go for their first swim, lose their shit because they're like, oh my God, I cannot do this. I swam as a kid, but all of a sudden swimming laps and swimming freestyle so much different, and they take to YouTube. And fortunately, we've got a bunch of videos there that help people out. And pretty much everything that we do is designed for that new triathlete in their first few years. And the whole goal is not to make them a college level swimmer. There's lots and lots of coaches out there that are much better than I am at the nuances of elite swimming. But we're pretty good at understanding what it's like to hop into that pool the first day and realize, oh my God, I got to swim 1,900 meters. I can't even swim a length.
Yeah. Well, it seems to follow a common theme on your channel is that you've had that exact experience, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So you just like, hey, you guys can do this. I started out not knowing anything about triathlon and doing this, and this is my journey, and everything I'm doing is from my own experience, and sharing that experience is something that is awesome, and we appreciate that very much, opening yourself up to us and the vulnerabilities you share with your audience. It really helps to bring that community together. So congratulations on your accomplishments and achieving a goal, because not many people actually set a goal and achieve it, especially one to be independent and doing something they love.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That means a lot to hear. Frankly, it's an honor, and it still is a little bit surreal that people let us into their lives. And I'm just a guy in a garage in Winnipeg, Canada. I talk to a camera a couple times a week, and it's an honor to be a small part of what people go through and be asked to be on shows like this. It's cool.
Well, we really appreciate your time, and I could talk to you for another 5 hours, but for the sake of...
Yeah, I think I could too. I really enjoyed this. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, man. We really enjoyed it. Maybe we'll come back, and when you hit your millions of subscribers, we'll do a follow-up on how you got there.
I don't even know if there's a million triathletes in the world, so to branch into fishing or something like that.
There's definitely a million fishermen. So, well, I appreciate it so much, and thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Taren.
Thank you guys for having me. This was fun.